Hi guys, my name is Lily and this is how I got into medical school in Australia. I made the decision to study medicine around grade 11. The first thing I did was go online and Google how to get into medical school, and that is where I found out about the infamous UCAT exam. So if you don't know what the UCAT exam is, it stands for the University Clinical Aptitude Test, and it is the test that most medical schools use to offer you an interview. The UCAT exam is comprised of 5 sections. The first is verbal reasoning, then decision making, then quantitative reasoning, abstract reasoning, and then situational judgment. The first 4 sections will comprise your overall UCAT score, and that is the most important score. The situational judgment score is not as important, but the medical schools will still look at it. The next thing I did was buy some books on the UCAT exam. I was doing the practice questions in those books, plus watching YouTube tutorials. I did that consistently for 2 months and I still could not wrap my head around the UCAT exam. I could not understand how a circle plus a rectangle minus a dog and a cat equaled a square. In the back of my mind, I knew I needed help with this UCAT exam. I also knew the importance of the UCAT exam because medical schools aren't going to look at your extracurricular activities, volunteering, nothing like that. They're only going to look at your UCAT score to offer you an interview. I went online to see if there was anybody out there who would help with this UCAT exam. I was disheartened by the advice that was out there. A lot of people would say that you don't need to prepare for this UCAT exam, but looking back now, that advice was entirely false. You should prepare and you should get the best possible help out there. After hours and days of researching online, I finally stumbled across the company known as MedView. So MedView is affiliated with the educational company Crimson, and basically what MedView does is help students with the 3 main stages of getting into medical school. The first stage being the UCAT exam, and then applying to the medical schools, and then the interview process as well. I was initially hesitant to go with the company because I thought nobody really in my cohort was getting help, and the people I knew who had already gotten into medicine, I assumed they got no help in getting into medical school. I quickly learned that that is false. It is true that not everybody goes with a company like MedView, but people do have access to quite exclusive information depending on who they know. I didn't want to jeopardize my chances of getting into medical school just because I didn't know the right people and I didn't have access to the best information. I signed up to MedView and they gave me a UCAT tutor. Patrick was my UCAT tutor and he was amazing. He was patient with me and he was non-judgmental that I forgot my primary school math, so I wasn't very good at quantitative reasoning. We worked through each section of the UCAT together. Even though I did have a UCAT tutor, I still did a lot of my own individual practice. I would wake up at 5 every single morning, have a cup of coffee, and go straight to my desk and practice for the UCAT. And I would do practice for about an hour. A lot of people treat the UCAT as something you can just practice on the side. I treated the UCAT exam like an extra subject. So I did math methods, general English, chemistry, biology, and Japanese, and UCAT. That meant I was dedicating as much time to the UCAT exam as one of my school subjects. So if you are struggling with the UCAT exam, I would highly recommend to get tutoring for the UCAT exam. It's the same as if you were struggling, say, in chemistry, then you would get tutoring for that. I booked my test in early March and I sat the UCAT exam in early July. Then the next stage of getting into medical school was actually applying to the different medical schools. This was the easiest bit of this whole getting into medical school dilemma, but it did take a long time because I had to fill in my personal details 100 times over. To apply to medical schools in Australia, you have to apply through the tertiary admission centres, and there's different ones for each state or the territory in Australia. For example, if you want to apply for Queensland medical schools, you have to go to the Queensland Tertiary Admission Centre and apply for the Queensland medical schools there. I basically applied to all medical schools in Australia. Some medical schools required me to apply to their own online portals. For example, James Cook University, I had to write a personal statement and submit it through James Cook University's online portal. James Cook University does not require the UCAT, they require the personal statement instead. Also, the University of New South Wales and the Joint Medical Program, which is the University of New England and the University of Newcastle. I had to fill out my personal details and answer a couple of questions. Applications opened around the 1st and the 2nd of August. I did though have until the 28th and the 29th of September to get in applications, but I got them in early so that they were just done and dusted. Around October, when I was sitting my final exams, I was getting emails from the medical schools either rejecting me or offering me an interview. In total, I was offered 8 interviews. I was offered an interview from Central Queensland University, the University of Queensland, James Cook University, the University of New South Wales, Monash University, the Joint Medical Program, the University of Adelaide, and the University of Western Australia. I was so excited that I got offered 8 interviews, but a mistake I did make was getting too comfortable in knowing that I had these interviews. Looking back, I didn't prepare as early as I should have, but I did have a tutor, Patrick, so the same as my UCAT tutor, to help me prepare for these interviews. For medical school, there are 2 types of interviews that you can get. There's the multiple mini interview, or the MMI, or the panel interview. The MMI is quite a unique and difficult interview. The MMI has different stations, and at each station you'll be given a scenario. You have to read the scenario, and then you have around 5 minutes to answer 4 to 5 questions relating to that scenario. The scenarios are usually some kind of ethical thing. My tutor explained in depth what the MMI is, and we did practice questions together. I also did my own practice by watching YouTube tutorials and filming myself answering practice questions. The panel interview is like a normal job style interview where they ask about yourself. So they'll ask why medicine, your motivations to study medicine. They will ask about your extracurricular activities, work experience, volunteering. The panel interview does require preparation because you need to know what your answers will be. I finished my interviews in early December, and then the worst part of this whole getting into medical school dilemma happened. I had to wait for a whole month to hear back from the medical schools. What made the wait even worse was that I had no backup plan. It was either get into medical school or nothing. But finally, on the 11th and 12th of January, I heard back from 4 medical schools. I was offered a place at the University of New South Wales, the University of Adelaide, Monash University, and the University of Queensland. So I chose the University of Queensland because it is my dream medical school, and I love Brisbane. Trying to get into medical school was by far the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. The sad truth about getting into medical school is that each year you apply, it gets harder and harder. It also gets more expensive, and you're using up more of your time. The competition gets more tough. The admission test is not the UCAT anymore, it's the GAMSAT, which is even harder than the UCAT. You have to pay for question banks to practice these tests, and then you also have to pay to sit the test, which is a couple hundreds of dollars. My biggest advice is to not fool yourself into thinking you can do this all alone. The process of getting into medical school is unfair. The UCAT is stupid. The MMI is an unfair selection process. It was important for me that I put myself in the best position possible so that I could get into medical school the first time around. But yeah, that's my journey of getting into medical school in Australia. You should definitely check out MedView, and good luck in your journey of getting into medical school.